My kids installed a smart home system to track my every move, supposedly for security. They installed cameras in my living room, sensors on my doors, and even a smart thermostat they could control from their phones 2 states away. Little did they know, the 17-year-old tech whiz from next door not only taught me how to master the system, but also showed me a glorious, gaping flaw in their plan. Because they linked our accounts under a family plan, I could see everything they were doing too. And what I found out they were really after wasn't my safety. It was my inheritance. They were about to learn that while I may have gray hair and a fondness for cardigans, my mind is as sharp as a tack, and this mother was done playing their game. If you're ready for this journey, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this a like so you don't miss the updates. And let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. It's always lovely to see where everyone is. Let me introduce myself. My name is Carol. I'm 68 years old, and I've lived in this house for 45 years. It's where my late husband David and I raised our 2 children, Michael and Susan. For the most part, they were good kids. We gave them everything: good schools, college educations, down payments for their own houses in nice, tidy suburbs. But somewhere along the line, they got the idea that the river of mom and dad's money would never run dry. Even after David passed 5 years ago from a sudden heart attack, they still seemed to think I was sitting on a dragon's hoard of gold. It all started about 6 months ago with the phone calls. They became more frequent, laced with a syrupy, sweet concern that set my teeth on edge. "How are you feeling, Mom?" Susan would ask, her voice an octave higher than usual. "Are you sure you're okay, all by yourself in that big house?" Michael would follow up an hour later. "You know, Mom, we were thinking, you're not getting any younger. We worry about you falling." "I've been a widow for 5 years and perfectly capable, thank you very much. I walk 2 miles every morning with my friend Joan from next door. I manage my own finances, and I can still open a pickle jar without any help." This sudden, suffocating attention was as suspicious as a $2 steak. Then, 2 months ago, they showed up for a surprise weekend visit. They arrived in Michael's oversized SUV, pulling a small mountain of boxes from the trunk. "We got you a gift, Mom," Susan announced, beaming as if she had just handed me the keys to a new Cadillac. It was a smart home security system. Michael, ever the pragmatist, explained its features with the slow, deliberate tone one uses for a toddler. "See, Mom, there's a camera here so we can check in and see that you're all right, and sensors on the doors so we'll know if you forget to lock up. We can even control the thermostat for you so you're always comfortable." Control the thermostat for me. I've been managing my own heat since coal was delivered in a truck, but sure, son. What it translated to was, "We want to watch you." They spent the entire day wiring up my house, drilling holes in my beautiful oak door frames, and mounting little white cameras like electronic gargoyles in the corners of my ceilings. They set it all up on their phones, patting my arm and telling me not to worry my pretty little head about the technical stuff. They'd handle it all. All I had to do was live my life, secure in the knowledge that my loving children were watching my every move. It felt less like a gift and more like a designer ankle monitor. The first week was maddening. The living room lights would flash on at 10 p.m. because Susan thought I'd gone to bed too early. The air conditioning would blast in the middle of the afternoon because Michael, sitting in his office 1,000 miles away, decided my house looked a bit stuffy on camera. I felt like a poltergeist was messing with me. I was a prisoner in my own home, a character in my children's real-life version of The Sims. I played my part, of course. I'd wave at the cameras, call them to thank them for the 10th time, and pretend I couldn't figure out how to stream my favorite British mystery shows on the new smart TV they'd installed. Let them think I was a feeble old woman. It was a role I was getting surprisingly good at. And just when they thought they had me backed into a corner, they forgot who they were dealing with. Stick with me because you'll want to see how this plays out. The solution to my problem lived right next door. My neighbor Joan's grandson, Leo, is a 17-year-old computer genius. The boy built his own computer from spare parts when he was 12 and talks about coding the way other kids talk about video games. I saw him mowing his grandmother's lawn one Saturday and trotted over with a pitcher of fresh lemonade and my best damsel in distress face. "Leo, honey, you are so good with these computery things," I began, fanning myself with my hand. "My kids installed this new internet thing, and I'm just all thumbs. I'm scared to touch it. I was wondering if you could spare an hour to just show an old lady how to work it? I'll pay you, of course." Leo, bless his heart, refused my money but agreed to help that afternoon. He sat at my kitchen table with his laptop and my iPad, and in 20 minutes, he had laid bare every digital secret my children had tried to hide. "Okay, Mrs. Gable," he said, pointing at the screen. "So here's the administrator dashboard. They've set themselves as the primary admins, which gives them full control." And, whoa. "What is it, dear?" I asked, leaning in. "They have microphone access enabled on all the smart speakers," he said, his brow furrowed. "And the cameras have motion tracking alerts sent directly to their phones. That's a lot." I feigned shock. "Oh my! For my safety, I'm sure." Leo didn't look so sure. He kept clicking, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He showed me how to access the logs, how to see every time an adjustment was made or a camera was viewed. Then his eyes lit up. "Oh, this is sloppy," he muttered to himself. He turned to me and explained. They used the same master password for everything, and they signed up for the Family and Friends discount package with the provider. Since your home is linked to their accounts as the parent location, and they've given you basic user access. He typed a few more commands, and a new window popped up on the screen. My jaw nearly hit the floor. It was a live feed from a camera pointed at Michael's pristine stainless steel kitchen. Another click, and I was looking at Susan's perfectly manicured rose garden. He showed me how to create a hidden administrator profile for myself, a ghost in the machine, he called it, that my children would never see. I could now see and hear everything they could, but more than that, I could see and hear them. They won't know you have this access unless you do something obvious like mess with their lights, he warned. Just be a quiet observer. I paid him $50 despite his protests and made him promise to keep our little tutorial a secret. That night, with a glass of Pinot Grigio in my hand, I sat in the dark of my living room and I began to watch. My nightly ritual became a lot more interesting than watching reruns of Midsummer Murders. I'd pour my tea, or sometimes something a little stronger, settle into my comfortable armchair, just out of my own camera's line of sight, and open up my little window into my children's worlds. At first, it was mostly mundane. I watched Susan have a 40-minute argument with her husband, Dan, about the proper way to load a dishwasher. Turns out there's a deep-seated philosophical divide in that household. I listened to Michael complain endlessly about his boss, his commute, and the price of arugula at Whole Foods. It was boring, petty, and frankly, a little sad. These were the lives they had built for themselves. Mortgaged to the hilt, obsessed with appearances, and fundamentally unhappy. They were diligent about watching me. On the activity log, I could see their logins. Michael checked in every morning around 8:15, right before he left for work. Susan was a night owl, usually peeking in after 11 p.m. They would sometimes text each other, thinking they were being clever. I knew this because I could hear the ping of their phones through their own smart speakers. "She's in the garden again. She's on the phone with Joan." It was infuriating.
But I held my tongue and played my part. I waved at the camera when I left the house and smiled at it when I came home. I was the perfect docile mother, just living out her golden years under the benevolent digital gaze of her wonderful children. The break in the case, my case, came about 3 weeks into my surveillance. It was a Tuesday night. I was watching Susan's feed. She was at her granite countertop, a glass of Chardonnay in her hand, FaceTiming with Michael on her tablet. His face was a bit pixelated, but the audio from her speaker was crystal clear. "She's not moving from her routine, Mikey," Susan sighed, swirling her wine. "It's the same thing every day. Walk with Joan, gardening, book club on Thursdays. I've watched her for hours. She hasn't gone near the attic or the basement crawl space."
Michael's voice was tense. "This is taking too long. My property tax bill is due, and that stock tip your idiot husband gave me wiped out a quarter of my savings." "Don't you put this on Dan," she snapped back. "Your guaranteed crypto investment didn't exactly pan out, did it? We're all in a bind here." There was a pause. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest. What bind? Susan lowered her voice, even though she was alone in her kitchen. Old habits die hard. "We just need to find them. Once we have Grandma Helen set, the necklace, the earrings, even that gaudy diamond brooch, we can get the replicas made. We make the swap, and we're out of this hole. Mom will never know the difference. She hasn't worn them in 20 years. She probably doesn't even remember where she put them." I nearly dropped my iPad. Grandma Helen's jewelry. My mother's engagement ring, the string of pearls my father gave her for their 25th anniversary, the sapphire necklace David had gifted me that had belonged to his mother. It was the entirety of our family's history distilled into precious stones and metals. It wasn't just about the money, which was considerable. It was the soul of our family, and they were talking about it like it was a pile of cash locked in a safe they just needed the combination for. Michael's voice was grim. "You're sure they're still in the house? Dad was always so paranoid. What if he put them in a safe deposit box?" "No," Susan said with absolute certainty. "Don't you remember what he told us when we were kids? Never trust a bank with what's most precious. Keep it under your own roof." He was obsessed with that. It's in that house, Mikey. It's tucked away in some shoebox or taped to the back of a drawer. That's why we need the cameras. We just need to watch her. One day she'll go to check on them, get a little sentimental, and bingo, we'll know right where they are. The betrayal was a physical blow. It was so cold, so calculated. The feigned concern, the invasion of my privacy, it was all a treasure hunt. I wasn't a person to them anymore. I was a map, and my home wasn't my sanctuary. It was a big fat X marking the spot. I know this part is hard to hear, but it's important. The truth was about to come out, and it was going to be glorious. A strange sort of calm washed over me. The hurt was still there, a hot coal in my stomach, but it was being rapidly cooled by a wave of pure, icy fury. They thought I was a dotty old woman wandering around a house full of treasure. They thought my late husband was a fool who'd hide his fortune under a floorboard. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I closed my eyes and pictured David years ago, shortly after my mother passed away. He came home one afternoon with a small, heavy velvet box and a key. He put the jewelry inside, locking it with a satisfying click. "Carol," he said, his voice firm and gentle at the same time, "this is our family's past and our grandchildren's future. It's too much temptation to just have lying around." He held up the key. "This is for Vault 713 at First National Bank. I told the kids we're keeping it under our own roof because if they think it's here, they won't try to pressure you to sell it if times get tough. It'll stay safe, where it belongs." My David, always 3 steps ahead. So the jewels they were hunting for weren't even in the house. They were sitting securely in a climate-controlled vault downtown. My children were playing a high-tech game of hot and cold, and the prize was miles away. And that's when the first flicker of an idea started. If they wanted to find some jewelry so badly,
Maybe I should help them. A few days later, I was monitoring Michael's feed. He was in his home office, on the phone with his wife, Jessica. The door was open, and I could hear his daughter, Chloe, practicing piano in the living room. Chloe is my youngest granddaughter, a smart, soulful kid of 19, home for the summer from her first year at university. It's just taking longer than we thought, Michael was telling Jessica in a low murmur. Susan is getting antsy. I still don't like this, Mike, Jessica replied. Her voice was faint but audible. It's your mother's inheritance. Just then, Chloe stopped playing the piano. Her footsteps padded down the hall. Are you guys talking about Grandma Carol again and her jewelry? I heard you and Aunt Susan talking last week. It's wrong. Why are you watching her on cameras? It's her house. It's creepy.
It's not complicated, Chloe shot back, and I felt a surge of pride. It's her property. It's stealing to even think about it. And it's a horrible way to treat the person who raised you. What is wrong with you? Michael mumbled something about her not understanding, but Chloe stood her ground for a moment longer before walking away in disgust. Right then and there, I knew two things for certain. One, my children were about to learn a very hard lesson, and two, Chloe was going to get a very nice, very real sapphire necklace for her next birthday. My plan started to take shape. My kids wanted treasure? I'd give them a treasure hunt. They wanted to steal from me? I'd give them the opportunity of a lifetime. I went to my computer and typed into the search bar, high-quality replica jewelry. The results were dazzling. For a few $1,000s, you could get cubic zirconia and plated metal that looked, to the untrained eye, identical to the real thing. I had plenty of good, clear photos of my mother's jewelry from insurance appraisals years ago. I found a custom jeweler online with rave reviews. It was time to set the bake. Ordering custom-made, high-end replicas of my own family heirlooms is a surreal experience, let me tell you. The internet is a wild and wonderful place. I uploaded the detailed photos from the insurance files to a secure server as instructed by a woman named Esmeralda from a company in New York's Diamond District. We had a long, encrypted chat. I told her I was a writer working on a mystery novel and needed believable props for a book cover photo shoot. She didn't bat an eye. For the right price, I get the feeling Esmeralda could recreate the crown jewels with a week's notice and a decent lunch break. 3 weeks and $4,000 later, a painful but necessary investment, a discreet, heavily insured package arrived at my door. Inside, nestled in black velvet, was my family's history reimagined in glass, silver sterling, and lab-grown stones. It was astonishing work. The weight was right, the settings were identical. Unless you were a trained gemologist with a jeweler's loop, you would never, ever know the difference. Holding the fake sapphire necklace in one hand and remembering the cool, heavy weight of the real one felt like I was holding a ghost. It was the perfect bait. Now I just needed the perfect place to set the trap. My children believed the jewels were hidden in the house. I had to let them discover the hiding place. It couldn't be too easy or they'd get suspicious. It needed to be a place they believed an old woman, sentimental and a little forgetful, would choose. It needed a story. I decided on the attic. It was a dusty, forgotten kingdom of my family's past, filled with old steamer trunks, boxes of my husband's college textbooks, and my children's long-forgotten school projects. I found what I was looking for in a corner, under a musty canvas tarp, a small, cedar-lined trunk that had belonged to my own mother. It was perfect. Inside were old lace doilies and a box of letters from my father when he was stationed overseas during the war.
I took out the letters, carefully bundling them in archival paper, and replaced them with a smaller, ornately carved wooden box. It was a music box David had given me for our first anniversary. Its melody had long since died, but it was beautiful. Into this box, I carefully placed the glittering fakes, the necklace, the earrings, the brooch. I wrapped the box in a yellowed silk scarf of my mother's and placed it at the very bottom of the trunk. It was ready. The stage was set. He was about to get exactly what he deserved, and I had a front row seat. Don't go anywhere. Now for the performance. I had to time it perfectly. I waited until a Saturday afternoon around 3 p.m. I checked my little surveillance app. Sure enough, Michael's activity indicator was green. He was logged in and watching. Susan usually checked in around that time too to make sure I wasn't doing anything strenuous like climbing a stepladder. It was showtime. I made a big production of dragging the rickety old attic ladder down from the ceiling in the hallway right in the main camera's line of sight. I grunted and groaned, playing the part of the frail senior citizen to the hilt. I even wobbled a bit on the second step, just for good measure. I could imagine the frantic text messages flying between them. What is she doing? Is she crazy? Up in the attic, out of the camera's view, I took a moment to breathe in the familiar scent of old paper and cedar. I could almost feel David's presence there, his quiet approval. Go get 'em, Carla. After about 15 minutes of banging around and making discovery noises, I came back down the ladder, a dusty coughing fit theatrically added. I was clutching the small wooden music box.
I walked directly into the living room, into the camera's full view. I sat in my favorite armchair, the one where the light from the window hits just right. I slowly, reverently opened the box. I took out the fake sapphire necklace, holding it up to the light, letting the expertly cut facets catch the afternoon sun. I put my hand to my chest and dabbed at my eye with a handkerchief as if overcome with emotion. I held each piece, the pearl earrings, the diamond brooch, letting the camera get a good long look at my rediscovered treasure. For my audience of two, you would have thought they'd just struck oil in the backyard. Through their smart speakers, I could hear the excited, hushed whispers. "That's it! That has to be it!" Susan shrieked to her husband. Michael was on the phone instantly, presumably with her. She's got it. She's got it out in the open. The final touch was choosing the new hiding place. Somewhere accessible. Somewhere they'd feel clever for finding. I took the music box upstairs to my bedroom. Again, I knew the camera up there covered my main dresser, but not the walk-in closet. I hesitated, looking around the room as if deciding where to hide my precious bounty. Then, as if a brilliant idea struck me, I took the music box and disappeared into the closet for a moment. I emerged empty-handed, a satisfied look on my face. Any fool would know to check a closet, and my children, in this particular matter, were the biggest fools of all. They'd think they were brilliant for figuring it out. Inside the closet, I tucked the box into the back of an old, little-used cedar chest where I keep my winter sweaters. Easy to find if you're looking, but not out in the open. Now, all I had to do was give them the opportunity. The following week, I called them both on a conference call. I told them I had a wonderful surprise. My friend Joan and I had booked a 2-week bus tour of New England's fall foliage. "We'll be gone from the 1st to the 15th of October, I chirped. "I've been wanting to go for years." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could practically hear the gears turning in their heads. An empty house. For 2 weeks. It was more than they could have ever hoped for. Their fake enthusiasm was sickeningly sweet. "Oh, Mom, that's wonderful. You deserve it," Susan said. "We'll miss you, but you should absolutely go," Michael chimed in. I told Joan's son would be checking on the house daily, collecting mail and watering plants. A little lie to add a tiny bit of risk to their calculations.
The pieces were all in place. The bait was set. The window of opportunity was established. I had 2 weeks until my trip. 2 weeks to watch my children plot the robbery of my house, the theft of their own heritage. 2 weeks to get ready for the grand finale. And believe me, it was going to be one for the ages. The 2 weeks leading up to my trip were a masterclass in domestic espionage. My children were as thick as thieves, literally. I listened in as they planned their heist with the subtlety of cartoon villains. They debated the best time to arrive, mid-afternoon to look less suspicious. They argued over which car to take. Susan's sensible sedan won out over Michael's flashy SUV. Michael, ever the penny pincher, was concerned about the cost of gas for the 10-hour drive. Susan was worried her husband Dan would get suspicious if she was gone for a whole Saturday. Their criminal conspiracy was bogged down by the mundane logistics of their suburban lives. It would have been comical if it wasn't so profoundly sad. I, on the other hand, was busy with my own preparations. I didn't book a bus tour. Instead, I reserved a suite at the Claremont, a lovely hotel just on the other side of town with a reliable room service menu and excellent high-speed internet. I needed a comfortable command center. I also made another call to my young neighbor Leo. I explained I was worried about my home's digital security while I was away and asked him to do a final sweep. What I really did was have him set up a secure, dedicated server to record every camera feed in my house 24/7. "It'll store everything in the cloud, Mrs. Gable," he explained, his fingers flying across his keyboard. "Even if they find a camera and smash it, the footage up to that exact second will be saved. Indestructible. You can access it from anywhere." Another $100 bill was tucked into his hand along with a plate of my best oatmeal raisin cookies. He was a good kid. The most important trip I made, however, wasn't to the travel agent. It was to the downtown police station. It felt strange walking in there, a place I'd only ever been to get a passport photo renewed years ago. I asked to speak with someone in the property crimes division. They led me to the desk of Detective Miller, a man probably in his late 50s with kind eyes and a weary but patient smile.
I laid out the whole story. I started with my husband's death, my children's sudden concern, and the installation of the smart home system. I didn't posture or get overly emotional. I just stated the facts, like I was giving a report at a PTA meeting. I told him how I'd learned to access their systems and what I had overheard. "They believe a valuable set of family heirlooms is hidden in the house," I explained. "It's not. It's in a bank vault. But I have reason to believe they intend to drive here and enter my home without my permission to search for it while I'm on a planned trip." Detective Miller listened intently, taking notes. He looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and what I can only describe as respect. "So you haven't been robbed yet," he clarified. "No," I said, "but the planning is extensive. I have audio recordings." His eyebrows shot up. "Ma'am, recording someone without their consent can be legally tricky." "Detective," I said, leaning forward and lowering my voice, "the audio I have is being captured by their microphones on their devices, which they voluntarily installed. I am simply listening to the feed they created, as is my right, according to the user agreement on their family and friends security plan." A slow smile spread across Detective Miller's face. He knew exactly what I was doing. "So, you have reason to believe they'll be there on a specific date?" "Saturday, October 7th. My trip runs from the 1st to the 15th. That gives them the first weekend to act." The trap was set, the authorities were quietly alerted, and my children were walking right into it. You're going to want to see the looks on their faces. He gave me his card with his direct cell number on it. He couldn't post a squad car outside my house based on speculation, but he promised me he and his partner would be on patrol in my area all day that Saturday. He told me to let the event happen. Let them enter the home, let them take the item in question. Once they are back in their vehicle with the property, they will have committed the act.
Call me the second they are pulling out of your driveway. We'll handle the rest." I walked out of that police station feeling 10 feet tall. I wasn't a victim waiting for a crime to happen. I was the architect of their downfall. The morning of my departure, October 1st, was a beautiful, crisp autumn day. I packed a suitcase, making sure to do it in full view of my bedroom camera. I called both of my children to say my final goodbyes. "I'm so excited," I told them, my voice full of cheer. "Joan's picking me up any minute. You be good now. I'll call you from the road." I waved goodbye to my empty living room, giving the camera a big theatrical wink. "Don't you worry about a thing," I said to my little electronic spies. Joan drove me to the hotel, helped me with my bags, and gave me a big hug. "You call me if you need anything, Carol. Anything at all. This is the craziest, bravest thing I've ever seen." My suite at the Claremont was lovely. A king's bed, a small sitting area, and a little kitchenette. I ordered a pot of English breakfast tea and set up my command center. My iPad was on the left, displaying a 4-way split of the most important camera views: the front door, the living room, the upstairs hallway, and my bedroom. My laptop, connected to Leo's secure server, was on the right, recording everything. For 6 days, I watched an empty house. It was peaceful. I read 3 novels, did my water aerobics in the hotel pool, and slept soundly for the first time in months. Then Saturday came. Just as they planned, at 2:47 p.m., Susan's blue sedan pulled into my driveway. I zoomed in on the front door camera. It was both of them. Michael used the spare key they'd insisted on having for emergencies. The door swung open. My heart was a drum against my ribs. I turned up the volume. The show was starting. "Okay, be quick," he whispered as if the walls could hear them. "Let's just get it and go." Where did she say she hid it? The closet, right? I watched them on the camera as they moved through my house, not like children returning home, but like burglars. They avoided the living room rug that creaked. They took off their shoes. They went straight upstairs. I switched my main view to the bedroom camera. They entered, looked around, and Michael pointed toward the closet door. They were in. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over Detective Miller's number. I watched them disappear into the closet, out of the camera's view. A moment later, I heard Susan's triumphant gasp, amplified by the smart speaker on my nightstand. "I've got it! Oh, Mikey, it's beautiful!" They emerged into view a moment later, clutching the wooden music box. They opened it right there on my bed, their greedy eyes feasting on the sparkling fakes. Their faces were a grotesque mixture of relief, greed, and guilt. "We did it," Michael breathed, lifting the fake necklace. Let's go now." I watched them scurry back down the stairs, clutching their prize. They didn't even look around the home they grew up in. They didn't see the pictures of themselves on the mantle. They just saw the exit. They locked the door behind them and hurried back to their car. The engine started. As the car began to reverse out of my driveway, I took a deep breath, took a sip of my now cold tea, and pressed call. "Detective Miller," I said, my voice steady as a rock. "It's Carol Gable. They're on the move." Through the slightly grainy feed from my front door camera, I had a perfect view of the end of my driveway and the quiet street beyond. It was like watching a movie of my own making. Susan's blue sedan reached the curb, ready to turn and drive away with my legacy in a box, and then it happened. As smooth as a scene in one of my British mysteries, a police cruiser with no siren, just its silent, flashing red and blue lights, pulled up right behind them, blocking them in. A second cruiser materialized from the opposite direction, boxing them in from the front. I saw Michael's head whip around, his expression of smug success instantly curdling into pure panic. Susan, in the driver's seat, just froze, her hands gripping the steering wheel. I watched as Detective Miller, looking as calm as if he were asking for directions, got out of his car and walked to Susan's window. I couldn't hear the audio, but I didn't need to. I could read the body language. The shocked gestures, the shaking heads, the slow, dawning horror as they were asked to step out of the car. Another officer took the music box from Michael's hands and placed it gently on the roof of their car. They looked so small, so pathetic, standing there on the side of the road next to the house they grew up in, caught in the act of robbing their own mother. I watched them get handcuffed, their heads bowed in shame, and as they were placed in the back of the patrol cars, I took another sip of tea, leaned back in my comfortable hotel armchair, and felt the tight knot of anxiety I'd been carrying for months finally, blessedly, unravel. About an hour later, my phone rang. It was an unlisted number. I answered. "Mom? Mom? Oh God, Mom, you've got to help us." It was Michael. His voice was a high-pitched, panicked squeak I hadn't heard since he was 7 and fell off his bicycle. "They arrested us. The police arrested us. They're saying we broke into your house, that we stole from you. It's a huge misunderstanding. You have to call them and straighten this out." I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. Then, in the calmest, clearest voice I could muster, I said, "No, Michael, it's not a misunderstanding." "What? What are you talking about?" "It is a consequence," and the power in those 4 words was immense. "I know everything. I know about the cameras, the microphones. I know you've been watching me for months, waiting. I know you wanted Grandma Helen's jewelry to sell so you could pay off your debts. I know you think I'm a feeble old woman you can manipulate and steal from. I heard it all." The silence on the other end was absolute. I could picture his face, the blood draining from it, the awful comprehension dawning. "It was you. You called the police on us?" "I called the police on 2 burglars who broke into my home to steal my property. The fact that they happen to be my children is your shame, not mine. The jewelry you have, by the way, is a worthless fake. I had it made just for you. A little prop for your big performance. The real jewels are safe. They were always safe." I could hear a choking sound on his end. I suspect Susan was on the line with him. I suspect Susan was on the line with him. "You will get 1 call to a lawyer. I suggest you use it. Do not call me again. We have nothing more to discuss." I ended the call and blocked the number. The fallout was spectacular. Faced with undeniable video evidence and their own recorded conversations from their smart speakers laying out their plans, which my lawyer later argued was perfectly admissible, given they were the ones who installed the recording devices, they had no choice but to take a plea bargain. They pled guilty to misdemeanor theft and criminal trespass. They avoided jail time but received 2 years of probation, 500 hours of community service each, and a hefty fine. Their lawyers tried to paint a picture of 2 worried children making a terrible mistake, but the cold, calculated nature of their planning didn't win them any sympathy. Of course, the news tore through their perfect little suburban communities. The shame was probably worse than anything the judge could have ordered. The first thing I did when I returned from my trip was hire a locksmith. I had every lock in the house changed. Then, I sent them each a registered letter containing the locksmith's bill and a formal notice that they were no longer welcome on my property.
A few months passed. The leaves had all fallen and a chill was in the air. I made another phone call, this time to my granddaughter. "Chloe, darling," I said, "it's Grandma Carol. I was wondering if you might be free to join me for an outing this Saturday. There's something I want to show you." That Saturday, I didn't take her to lunch or a museum. I drove us to the First National Bank, downtown. I led her down into the vault, the great steel door hissing shut behind us. I used my key to open safe deposit box 713. I pulled out the long, slim metal box and placed it on the table in the small private room. "Your father and your aunt," I began, my voice steady. made some very poor choices. They let fear and greed poison their hearts. They forgot what family is about. I opened the box. The deep, velvety blue of the sapphires, the gentle luster of the pearls, the brilliant fire of the diamonds. They lay on the black velvet, glowing with the weight of history and love. Chloe gasped. Her eyes were wide. "They are beautiful, Grandma," she whispered. "They are our history," I said. "And the thing about history is we have a duty to pass it on to those who will honor it." I picked up the heavy sapphire necklace David's mother had worn. "Your father and your aunt, they abdicated their role as custodians of this history. But you, Chloe, you stood up to them. You told them they were wrong. You showed character. You showed integrity." I held out the necklace. "Your great-grandmother Helen would want her legacy to be in the hands of a woman of strength and principle. Legally, these are to be split upon my death, but I don't believe in waiting to reward goodness. Half of this is now yours." Tears streamed down her face as she let me clasp the necklace around her neck. It looked perfect on her. In that moment, seeing her integrity rewarded and her future brightened, I knew I had made the right choice. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. It was about restoring balance. I still live in my big house, but it no longer feels like a prison. The cameras are all gone. I have my own simple security system now, one that I control. My world is quieter, smaller, but it is entirely my own. Michael and Susan sometimes send stilted, formal letters filled with apologies that ring hollow. I have not replied. I am building a new legacy now, one founded on trust and honesty, with a granddaughter who understands the true value of things. I've learned that you're never too old to be underestimated, and you're never too old to stand up for yourself. My children wanted to track my every move, and in the end, it was they who were watched, they who were caught, and they who lost everything that truly mattered. So now I ask you all, sitting there watching this, what would you have done in my place?
My grandmother told me this story. Thanks for watching this video. Bye bye!